them work. I want them to know what it feels like, because if I just give them money and they've never tasted what it's like for everyone else to, like it was for me, I had to work and part-time jobs on top of it. When I was replenishing the money I blew in those accounts, I had to work a secondary job to get it. And it took a lot to be able to get that money back in there just to do it again. But I didn't lose hope. I was cussing and ranting and raving the whole time I had to do it, wanting to quit the extra job I was working. But I knew unless I did this, nothing's going to change. Nothing is going to change unless you put your feet to the ground and say, I'm digging my heels in. I know it's going to be hard. I know I'm going to have pushback. I know it's going to be requiring me to put time into it. When all my friends are out there running around and clubbing and doing this and chasing tail and doing this and doing that and drinking and having fun on the weekends, I'm going to be in these charts studying. I'm going to be living my life differently. But they're still going to be out there trying to chase tail, broke as fuck, driving a beater fucking car, and ain't doing shit in their life. And you'll be able to pull down annual fucking salaries on a week. You can't even imagine where you're going to be. You can't even imagine it. Whatever you think is your level of success, it's not big enough. It's not big enough. You have no idea when you strip all these limitations that you put on yourself. You shackle yourself with your own mindset. You do it. This is all I can see myself doing right now. When you start making $100,000 a year, you start thinking to yourself, well, shit, that wasn't all that hard. I thought it was really hard. Well, now I'm going to aim for $500,000. And the attempts that you do to do that, you get there in less than half the time. And you start thinking, well, shit, they say the first $1 million is the hardest one. I'm about there. Boom, in a couple more months, and then you're there. Then you look back and say, $1 million isn't all that much money. And yeah, it took some effort, but it didn't take as much effort as I thought it was going to take. And then you start making $5 million, $10 million. 15 million, 50 million. And I know I'm talking in numbers none of you can fucking comprehend, but it is what it is, folks. It's just math. It's just math. You're compounding the efforts of what you're able to do on the smallest form. In that little cookie cutter mold that I'm going to find 5 handles in the S&P to begin with. And I'm going to let it grow till I can start doing 8 and then 10, or start with 20 in NASDAQ and work towards 30 and 40 to 50. You only got to do them a few times a week, folks. And as your equity increases, you can afford to do more contracts. That compounds, and you keep adding it more and more and more. But the level of risk is always the same. Whatever you associate in terms of your risk, I'm not going to risk more than 1%. But I can't get rich trading with 1%. Bullshit. You can get rich trading with 1/4%. You have to submit the time. None of you want to do that part, but that's the part you have to submit to. That's the first thing I submitted to when I first started trading. I had a 20-year plan. Imagine me writing a book. How to be successful and retire 20 years as a trader. Nobody's buying that book. Now, in the 80s and the 90s, that would have been a great title because everything was around what? For you younger folks, you ain't going to know this, but it was all mutual fund. It was when mutual funds and fidelity. Everybody was trying to get people to invest in these mutual funds. And they were projecting, this is what you should do. Average is 12% return on stocks over the course of the years. You put this much money in, your money can compound. You'll have $1 million by the time you're whatever. So I was like, well, shit. If I can make 12% in a mutual fund a year, what happens if I start making 12% a month? And then what happens when I start making 12% every 2 weeks? And then what happens if I make 12% a week? And then what happens if I can compound my efforts